Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to give you, I suppose, a UK perspective and a European perspective in terms of the try and focus on services, because the government had tendency even then to kind of focus on the UK broadband initiative, and the UK broadband initiative talked about access. Access is one thing, but what are you trying to achieve from that access? And no one was kind of trying to figure those out. And I think so the driving factor from that was to try and understand what kind of applications you're going to be actually driving. So I'm going to, and in that time as well, been doing a lot of policy work with the number 10 policy unit, and what they have tended to do there to kind of to try and learn, I suppose, and this is what we're discussing in terms of best practices, is to bring, I suppose, industry people on secondment into the policy unit. And that way they can bring the industry experience back into government and try to get that best practice. And I think the government needs to appreciate that and try and get that value because it's out there. I'm going to touch on a few points because a lot of the kind of general points have been covered. So a couple of the things in terms of getting, I suppose, the best governance and your policies. Policies are, you start looking at policies once you've actually captured and you know what you're trying to achieve and deliver. And I think, so understanding and having, I think one of the points that was raised was having a very clear view, a very clear vision.
I think we have not. Stop.
Thank you. So one of the things is you really do need to have a very clear vision. The government needs to know why it's trying to do eGov, you know. And if you don't know that, then you're kind of going to miss the whole point. You know, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Is it, you know, for revenue collection? Is it for improving the lives of the citizen? What's the reason for going down the eGov route? And having that clearly defined, and also having very clear, I suppose, exit points down the road is also important so that you don't have to stop these projects. One of the examples is we did e-voting back in the UK to try and access as many people, because people at local elections and even national elections had a tendency to say, okay, you know, Labour is just going to win or Conservatives are going to win, and no one comes out to vote. So the whole idea was, how do you actually reach out and get more people? So having a clear view of why you're trying to bring e-voting is absolutely essential. The other point is, effectively, that was mentioned here briefly, was the whole role of project management. That's also critical because you need to manage all aspects of this and have a very clear leadership in terms of who's driving your vision, your strategy within the government, as well as all the stakeholders that you have. Change management was mentioned briefly. Again, the key thing there in terms of change management is you do need all of the stakeholders you have. And I think it's important to get the citizens, the government, as well as industry. So we've actually had quite a few lobby groups in the UK where if you want broadband uptake, there were rural communities that actually created a lobbying group, and the government ended up building what they called RDAs, Regional Development Authorities. And they were given grants and funding from central government to try and drive up the access as well as services. So the citizens had some influence in terms of getting that onto the agenda. So I think it's absolutely important to try and involve all the stakeholders that are involved in it. The other thing is, and it applies to everybody, is politics as well as self-interest. Everyone wants to know what's in it for me, and that's very straight. You have to know why you're doing it, how you're going to gain out of it. And this comes back to the e-licensing thing that was done, e-passport, that and e-tax. The whole idea of filling income tax online was that so that the government collect the maximum revenue from it. So that was the agenda, and therefore we actually had to get that very clearly done. And in terms of e-voting, obviously, it was trying to get access to the citizens out there. The other thing people tend to forget is because these are mainly driven through ICT, and by ICT, I mean we have all the big guys, and some of them are sponsors here of the eWorld Forum, but these are, again, in the UK, you've got your HPs, your IBMs. They have a very focused drive, and that is to sell technology. That's what they do. They'll come in and they'll say, this is what you need. But you really need to understand how you're going to engage with your citizen. And you have to put yourself very much in a, you have to treat the citizen as a consumer. He's going to have the consumption of your e-services. So you need to know how to engage with them. It's no point to saying, here's a service, they will use it. We've put some information on the internet or portal, they will come. Why would they come? What is it in for them? So it's very important to design and have I suppose, a wider mode of access. So, it's not necessarily broadband and laptops. It is mobile. It's touchscreen. It's kiosks in various locations, rural access, how you're going to get there. So you have to understand the overall. You have to have a holistic view, and then you can start figuring out how you're going to deliver that. And I suppose the other thing, again, that we touched on all the time is competencies. You need to get all this, you have to have skills and knowledge. But the biggest challenge in UK, and I suppose, and Europe, some of the things, and I suppose it will be equally here, is attitude. How do you change the attitude in terms of getting this thing done? Absolutely critical. It's doable, and it's doable through case studies. You involve them in case studies, you do workshops, you bring all the stakeholders back in, and you tell them what is it that they're going to benefit. So, for example, the RDAs and the regional development authorities, the buy-in was you're going to have free Wi-Fi access, right? They were going to roll out broadband, but the big ticket was they'll get access for free. So there was something in for them, and they actually bought into the whole thing. And kind of, I suppose, a last point for me in here is, although we talk about technology, I'm trying to put this in the right way. You really need to kind of, you can have as a big picture as you want, but you need a way to phase it, because you never ever deliver what you're trying to describe at the day one. So having a very clear phased approach, small steps, but once it's achievable and you have some pilots, you need the scale to actually drive it and actually get the buy-in from the citizens out there. So that's kind of my uptake and trying to share some of the stuff we've done out there in Europe in terms of broadband and in terms of UK. Thank you.